Since we're talking about wins for democracy and how the Trump regime are a bunch of big fat losers, there's really good news coming out of Indiana that I want to share with you. I know I can be a little bit harsh on Hoosiers, even though my mom's family were all Hoosiers. My grandpa was a farmer in Indiana who ended up having to sell his farm in the late 1940s and go work for Delco Remy. But Indiana has become very much a Trumper hellscape. And so when Donald Trump started pushing all of these different state legislatures around the country to gerrymander the shit out of their congressional maps, right? First he went to Texas and Governor Greg Abbott was like, yes, Daddy Donald, I'll do whatever you want. And then we've seen how that has played out all the way to the Supreme Court, where judges who are ruling on the side of the law are like, obviously this map is heinously racially gerrymandered and you can't do this. But the 6 uber conservative justices at SCOTUS want to make Donald Trump a monarch. And so they were perfectly willing to let this horrible gerrymandered map in Texas go forward. But while all of that has been unfolding for several months, Donald Trump has been trying to pressure Republicans in other state legislatures around the country to gerrymander their maps as well. The reason that he's doing this is because he knows that if they don't cheat, they can't win. They have to cheat in order to win in the midterms. Republicans are deeply unpopular. Why? Because they're destroying healthcare in this country. Everything is becoming increasingly unaffordable. Our quality of life is going down the toilet because the Republicans are in charge, because the Republicans have decided to side with fascism, to side with Donald Trump, and to betray their own constituents. And so, of course, their constituents are becoming increasingly pissed off, like, because it's us, the people, who have the power. We loan that power to our elected representatives, both in Congress and in state houses as well. And we say, hey, that power belongs to us. We're going to loan it to you so that you can govern on our behalf. But when Republicans in Congress are not governing on our behalf, when they are focused on supporting the billionaires, on supporting Donald Trump and the destruction of democracy, then it's time to pull our power back, to reclaim our power. That's what people are doing all over the country. And one of the key ways that we do that is at the ballot box, which is why, as I said in a video late yesterday, Republicans are getting their asses handed to them across the board in elections this year. And that portends a really, really bad 2026 for the Republicans. So because Donald Trump knows if free and fair elections are allowed to happen, if people have their votes counted, if people get representation in government, that the Republicans are absolutely screwed, he's got to cheat. There's nothing else to it. There's no magic zapping of the votes. What there is are classic, tried and true techniques that Republicans have used for decades to suppress the vote, particularly of Black voters. And because we are looking at the congressional map in particular, because every single member of the House is up for re-election, the most obvious way for them to try and cheat is to do this mid-decade redistricting so they can gerrymander Democrats out of seats. Because otherwise they're fucked. They cannot maintain power through legitimate means, so they have to cheat. So Donald Trump was pressuring all these other states, Florida, Indiana, North Carolina, Missouri, Ohio. Ohio was already gerrymandered all to shit. Most of these Republican states that have a Republican-controlled state house, they're already incredibly gerrymandered. Which means that if they go ahead and push through these gerrymandered maps, there's only so much they can wiggle things around, and that creates the opportunity for a backlash effect, where you're taking districts that were very solidly red and you are having to move blue voters into that district in order to weaken a blue district over here so that you can flip it red. And do you understand how when you're already extremely gerrymandered, you have to put those blue voters somewhere? You're now taking a district that was really solidly red and you're making it more purple in the hope that you can take this blue district and make it more purple or make it flip red. So there's the potential there for it to backfire really, really badly. And there's a lot of hope that that can happen in Texas, especially because the racially gerrymandered map is dependent on Hispanic Texans voting very heavily Republican. And we're seeing from races in other states, like the mayoral election in Miami, Florida yesterday, that Hispanic voters are swinging back to the Democratic Party. So for now, Texas has their gerrymandered map, and Donald Trump is not happy with just that, because there could be this backlash effect. So he's pressuring state legislatures in these other Republican-controlled states to continue to advance that gerrymandering plan, to advance the plan to cheat in the midterms. And there was tons of talk that Indiana was going to fold. right? This is Daddy Donald. He gets whatever he wants. Republicans, especially at the congressional level, national level, in both the House and the Senate, have said, we'll do whatever you want. Just don't bully us. Don't primary us. They don't want what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene to happen to them. They don't want to get the death threats. They don't want to risk losing their power. And so they will betray you and me and American democracy for their jobs, for their comfort, for their power. But it's also happening on a state level. There's an awful lot of Trump loyalists in state houses around the country. But Donald Trump, his numbers are real bad. There is this scandal now with bombing these drug boats, fishing boats. He's completely destroying the economy. He's destroying healthcare. Republican voters all across the country in these red states are really negatively impacted. They're on SNAP. They're on Medicaid. They're seeing their grocery prices go up. Their car premiums go up. They're seeing life become increasingly unaffordable, and they're pissed off. And that pressure from the public, because remember, ultimately the power lies with the people, that ire, that anger from the public, that influences elected officials, whether you want to believe it does or not. If you're pissed off, if you're vocal about it, that helps them kind of recalibrate, kind of change up their calculus a little bit and say, maybe I should be more afraid of the people than I am of Donald Trump. And that's what we're seeing here in Indiana, I think. Let me read this little piece here from the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. This came out about an hour ago. It is by Tom Davies and Casey Smith. It starts off, the Republican-dominated Indiana Senate voted 19-31 on Thursday against redrawing the state's congressional districts, spurning months of demands by Donald Trump. This was not a close vote, y'all. 19-31 Republicans resoundingly said, no, we're not doing this. 21 Republicans joined all 10 Democratic senators in rejecting the redistricting plan. With that tally, Indiana becomes the first Republican-led state legislature to vote down Trump's wish to squeeze out more GOP-friendly congressional seats in hopes of improving the party's chances of keeping its slim U.S. House majority after the midterms. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, people were in my comments saying, oh no, Indiana's going to gerrymander. This is going to happen. They're going to do whatever Donald Trump wants. Indiana is deeply, deeply red. And I was like, y'all, the future is not yet known. You need to be calling your reps in the Indiana State House and telling them, don't do this. Don't do this thing. By the way, I vote. I'm your constituent. Don't do this. Right? So the National Republican Redistricting Trust, aka let's gerrymander the shit out of every state, they produced this map that carved up 2 districts that were held by Democrats, Andre Carson and Frank Marvin. But the Senate's Republican leader, President Pro Tem Roderick Bray, said that too few GOP senators supported this mid-decade redistricting plan. And today it failed in a vote, handily. Now, I think we can expect Trump to be big mad over this because he's becoming increasingly desperate. They have to cheat to win. We are seeing Democratic voters mobilizing. We are seeing people who are no longer believing the bullshit that the Republican Party is trying to shove down their throats. And we are seeing elected representatives, even Republicans, standing up against Donald Trump now. This is an aging, frail narcissist who's on the way out. It's pretty clear as he's sundowning, as he's falling asleep in every meeting, as he has to be seated, he is in very poor health. It's just word salad all day long. They've given him his little basket of dementia washcloths to fold, right? Which is his ballroom project. Somebody else is behind the scenes pulling the strings. And that somebody else, Stephen Miller or Russell Vought or both, those are deeply uncharismatic, unelected people who cannot hold this regime together. And I think a lot of Republicans are waking up and realizing like, oh, I don't want to be somebody who is investigated after all of this period in history ends. I don't want to be on the wrong side of history, and I don't want to be investigated. I don't want to get called up in front of Congress. I don't want to be prosecuted in the coming years. My loyalty to this aging, frail narcissist who is on the way out, to this lame duck president, that loyalty does not extend so far as me going to prison, or even so far as me losing my job. So I think we're going to see more and more of this. Republicans who are like, oh, I see which way the wind is blowing. More rats fleeing a sinking ship like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but also more state elected officials who are not willing to destroy their careers and their lives for Donald Trump. This is a good win for democracy. Anytime we can have less gerrymandering, anytime people's votes can be counted and they can get representation, that is a really big win. And if you're a Hoosier, this is a good time to call your state senator and give them feedback on how they voted today.